All right, let's get into it. Today, we are tackling one of those things that pretty much everyone in music talks about, but almost nobody really understands: how artists actually get paid by Spotify. It's this whole world of confusing numbers and myths, but there's a formula at the heart of it all that, once you get it, changes everything. So let's pull back the curtain and see how the money actually flows. Okay, so here's the big one. The question I bet you've asked or at least heard someone else ask. You've probably seen a number floating around online and just kind of accepted it. Okay, that must be the rate. Yeah, a number that looks something like this: less than a half a penny per stream. But what if I told you that number isn't a rate at all? In fact, the whole idea of a single per stream rate is one of the biggest myths out there. The real story is so much more interesting. So if it's not a set price, then what in the world is it? Well, to get why this myth is so sticky, you first have to understand that the number you see isn't a price someone sets. It's the result of a calculation. You know that number? The one that seems to bounce around every month? It's not random. It's literally the answer to a math problem. And that problem is solved using a very specific formula every single month. And that formula is called the Pro-Rata Model. This right here is the key to unlocking the whole thing. It's not about Spotify buying streams one by one. It's about dividing up a giant pool of money. So here's the official definition. In a pro-rata system, your stream count alone doesn't actually matter that much. What really matters is your percentage of the total streams, and it's specific to each country, each month. It's all about how big your slice of the pie is. And honestly, this is the best way to think about it. Imagine everyone who subscribes to Spotify in, say, the United States, throws their monthly fee into one massive pot. That pot of money is used to buy one single, gigantic pizza for that month. Your streams don't buy you a slice. They just determine how big of a slice you get to take from that one pizza everyone's sharing. So, how does your $10 a month actually get from your bank account to your favorite artist? Let's follow the money, step by step. It really breaks down into three big stages. First, all the money from everywhere gets collected into that giant pot. Second, Spotify takes its share right off the top. And third, what's left over is divided up among all the artists based on their share of the streams. So first up, step one, creating that revenue pool. And it's not just from premium subscribers, even though that's the biggest chunk. It's also all the money made from ads shown to free listeners, plus any special partnership deals. All of that cash gets dumped into one pot, for each country, for each month. Now for step two, the first big split. Before any artist sees a penny, Spotify takes its cut, and it's roughly 30%. The other 70%, that becomes what's called the royalty pool. That is the giant pizza. That's the money that's going to get paid out to everyone who owns the rights to the music. And that brings us to the big one, step three, the formula itself. An artist's share of that royalty pool is determined by a super simple fraction. You take their total streams for the month and divide it by the total streams of every single song in that country for that month. The answer is their percentage. That's their share. Let's put some numbers to this to make it real. Imagine your favorite indie band has a great month and gets 1 million streams. Sounds huge, right? But what if the total number of streams in that country for the month was 10 billion? Well, then their share of the pie is just 1/100th of 1%. So they get 0.01% of that month's royalty pool. So once you get the math, you start to see how this system creates, well, some very different outcomes depending on what kind of artist you are. And this is where it gets really fascinating. The path the money takes is completely different. For an artist on a major label, Spotify pays the label first. The label then takes out any money the artist still owes them for things like recording or marketing. That's called recoupment. What's left is then paid to the artist. For an independent artist, though, the path is way more direct, which means they get to keep a much, much bigger piece of what they earned. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out there. For every single dollar their music earns from that big royalty pool, a major label artist might only see about 16 cents land in their pocket. But an independent artist, they could take home 85 cents, or even more. The difference is absolutely staggering. But there's another kind of wild consequence of this whole pro-rata thing. Because everyone is sharing one big pizza, when someone with a massive appetite shows up, everyone else gets less. This is what people call the superstar effect. So take a look at a normal month. Yeah, the big artists get their big slices, but there's still a huge chunk over 3/4 of the entire pie left for thousands and thousands of other artists to share. Okay, but now watch what happens when a global superstar drops a surprise album. Boom. All of a sudden, that one release might just suck up 45% of all the listener attention for the entire month. They've just eaten a massive chunk of the pizza, which means the piece left for every single other artist has shrunk a lot, even if their own stream count stayed exactly the same. So, after all of that, what's the one big idea you should walk away with? What is the core principle behind this whole Spotify formula? This is it. This is the whole game. Spotify is not paying for streams. It is paying for attention. Your streams are just the way they measure what percentage of the total listener attention an artist managed to capture in a given month. The more of that collective attention you have, the bigger your share of the money, period. And that brings us right back to the beginning. The reason that imaginary per stream rate is always changing is because all of these things are changing every single month. The amount of ad revenue, the number of subscribers, the total number of streams, the total amount of attention, it's all constantly in flux. It's a dynamic calculation, not a static price tag. This whole system, the pro-rata model, is why you hear a lot of artists and people in the industry talking about a different way of doing things, something they often call a user-centric system. And it leads to a really fascinating final question to think about. What if your subscription fee didn't go into that one giant pizza for everyone? What if it was divided up only among the artists that you personally listen to? That's a system that could change the entire equation all over again.